Lawns, as we know them, have held their landscaping tyranny over our yards for far too long. Backed by out-of-touch homeowners associations, zoning requirements, cultural expectations, and long-standing histories of conformity, lawns have kept too many of us out there spraying, mowing, reseeding, and weeding for no good reason. It's time for a change. If you don't want to spend any more Saturday mornings nursing wasteful strips of artificially maintained grass, you don't have to anymore. And if you think those unused areas of featureless green would be better used growing something other than grass, like native plants or the original habitat, you're not alone. A garden should be allowable in a front yard, even if it's not the norm for your patch of suburbia. There's actually a huge range of options out there when you decide to break with the green grass goose step. Let's talk about it. Most, if not all of us, grew up with green spaces available wherever we looked. Even if we lived in a tiny urban lot or an apartment complex, our schools, churches, or businesses were all hemmed in with surprisingly large areas of carefully trimmed and fertilized vegetation. It's so ubiquitous and expected that most of us hardly notice it at all. But where did this tradition originate? Well, lawns started out as a status symbol, and they've been holding that dubious rank since they were first carved out of the fields around castles. Back then, there was at least some strategic advantage to them. Pretty hard to have your army sneak up on an enemy stronghold when it's surrounded by areas of carefully trimmed plants rather than a shadowy forest. In peaceful times, the meticulously cut acres surrounding a home were a public declaration of wealth. In an age without lawnmowers and gasoline, the only way to keep the turf trim was by employing scores of subservient, scythe-wielding serfs, say that 5 times fast, to do what amounted to pointless work. For the common folk, lawns were public grazing areas kept trimmed by willing herds of sheep and cattle, where we get the term lawned, which is an Old English word meaning glade or barren area. You certainly couldn't brag about your monetary accumulations like the lords did. The animal manure was a dead giveaway. There was probably no denying the pleasure of strolling unimpeded across a gently rolling hill. Now fast forward to the New World, and the lawn continued to be held as a status symbol. Thomas Jefferson famously developed them around his Monticello estate, and the trend continued to spread. When America started developing and modernizing its cities, the inevitable train of suburbs sprawled out from them, and with them came that perfectly trimmed and bright green space of grass. Depending on your opinion, you can either thank or gripe at Abraham Levitt and his sons for embedding that immaculate green, weedless carpet of turf into the white picket fence psyche of the past 6 decades or so. He was a key part of pioneering the suburban conformity that we still uphold to this day. Now in the modern day, keeping up with the Joneses and their perfect patch of fescue has become the middle-class attempt to still pretend to be the old fancy lords that we probably don't even realize we're emulating. Lawns are a booming business. In 2020 alone, industry raked in $10.5 billion to keep those largely useless patches of green as lush as possible. Turf grass is the most widely grown crop in the United States, covering more than 40 million acres of land. In a darkly funny case of history repeating itself, plenty of folks are still following the same actions of those serfs from the Middle Ages, expending time and resources to pointlessly care for plants that neither feed nor house them. But we've taken it much further than that. In addition to spraying scores of pesticides and fertilizers to keep that freakily verdant grass bright no matter what the weather, the US now uses 1/3 or more of its available freshwater to care for lawns. I want to repeat that fact. At least 1/3 of our drinkable water isn't used to grow food, water livestock, or give thirsty people a drink. It's used to water non-native, non-food swathes of grass that are chemically forced to stay in monoculture and cropped weekly by gas-guzzling machines, all to preserve a status symbol. In volume, that translates to nearly 3 trillion gallons of water a year. Now, as you may expect, many environmental activists, so-called experts, and eco-conscious journalists have sounded the alarm that it's time to abolish the lawn in its entirety, referring to them as ecological dead spaces, and declaring that we need to replace them with native species or else we're in big trouble. But for the purposes of this article, I have a different approach. I don't want to get rid of the lawn, and I hope that this video doesn't come across as just another guilt-ridden judgment on the hapless public. I just want to get rid of unused areas of artificially maintained and pesticide-sprayed grass, and I would like to offer you some options. Because the truth is, if you do have a lawn, however big or small, you have a space of dirt that is chock full of exciting potential. And being motivated by the thrill of a new endeavor is a lot better propelling force than being motivated by guilt. So if you feel done with the expense and waste of the useless grass-growing game, there's a world of choices available to you. Let's take some scenarios, case by case, and see which one might be the best fit for you. I find that the ecological conversations surrounding the abolition of yards are often devoid of a very crucial question. Where are the kids supposed to play and safely enjoy the outdoors? Where are the dogs supposed to stretch out in the sun with their bellies to the sky? Where are the families supposed to make a cozy backyard campfire, filling the air with laughter and stories? What's the use of having some magical eco-backyard full of native perfection and indigenous shrubs if you can't enjoy it? So let's get to 2 simple tips that make sense for the homeowners with a family. First, stop spraying your backyard. Are you able to let go of the bragging rights of an astroturf-like space of uninterrupted green? Eventually, other plants will start to populate the area. Clover will sneak in, dandelions will raise their sunny little heads, and henbit will decorate the margins. Fewer chemicals in your world means healthier soil, healthier water, and much, much healthier little bare feet. Second, mow less frequently. Over-frequent mowing interrupts the natural growth cycle of grass, resulting in stunted root systems that just can't deal with drought or flooding nearly as well as they should. And if you do have to replant, just use grasses native to your area. We got a comparison between root systems right here. Take a look at those roots. Low-maintenance home lawns. Some of us want to spend our precious days doing something other than landscaping. Or some of us may have to deal with chronic pain, increasing age, or the care of something more important than our turf. For these folks, I'd like to recommend checking out our earlier video on alternative ground covers. Although some of them will need a bit of effort to get started, once in place, the plants on our list require no mowing. Wildlife habitats for home lawns. The National Wildlife Fund offers certification for yards that want to be converted into certified wildlife habitats and gives plenty of great information on how to do it. Audubon Society offers a similar program to folks wanting to get their backyard certified as habitats. You'll have to do some research to find your own local program. Garden space home lawns. Now, as ridiculous as these decrees sound to folks who want to grow their own food, dealing with the threat of fines may be a turnoff to those trying to change their turf into tomatoes. There are several ways to approach this. For the devil-may-care crowd, I suggest putting a garden in the best, sunniest space you have on your property. Some say it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. Fence it in if necessary to keep it safe from curious sidewalk kids, because sometimes they do steal hot peppers for dares. Do a really good job, make it beautiful. If you feel extra bold, deliver a small basket of those pretty tomatoes to the head of your HOA to confuse them. And if you find that you need to fight this fight to grow your own food, there are plenty of stalwart folks with dirt on their hands who have gone before you. For those looking to fly a little more under the radar, try edible landscaping and check out our earlier article on the topic here. Or hide your garden in plain sight. Who says your window boxes can't have a full palette of kitchen herbs? Why'd anybody fight you over the beauty of some flowering burgundy okra or red garnet amaranth gracefully towering over some multicolored bright light Swiss chard with the purple pom-poms of onion flowers nodding in agreement? Train cucumbers to climb up the patio and surround that mailbox with the beautiful foliage of sweet potato vines. Most passers-by would just think you landscaped with some really exotic plantings. For those looking to be even more covert, plant fruit trees and native edible shrubs in your front yard. To the botanically illiterate, they'll just look like they're another planting of some random bush thing, but you know that they're full of future good eating. Investigate if your state offers native bare root seedlings. Sometimes these plants cost less than $1 each when they're sold from nurseries maintained by your local Department of Conservation. You know that low, boggy area of the yard that always turns into a brown, grass-killing puddle every time it rains? Stop fighting it. It's begging to be converted into a rain garden, a mini wetland that soaks up runoff like a sponge and can be populated with gorgeous native plants. And it will save you money on reseeding. Or you know how you've spent so long with that sprinkler system or hose trying to keep that poor drought-stricken yard from succumbing to the same dry weather every summer brings? Stop fighting it. Maybe your area's climate was never designed to support non-native grass in the first place. Find out what wants to grow there no matter what rainfall you've got. Giving your state's Department of Conservation a call will actually point you in the right direction too, and see about replanting with species that can handle drought, like champs. Try researching the term xeriscapes and you'll be amazed by the varieties that can fill a dry yard that doesn't naturally support grass. Or you know that shady area that always seems to end up sparse and patchy? Stop trying to plant species that need full sun there, like grass. Instead, a shade garden could be a much better fit. Check out our earlier article on plants that were made to thrive in the shade and bring a bit of the secretly beautiful forest understory to your growing patch of paradise. Now I could go on, but you see the point. If grass isn't working for some reason, why keep trying to make it work? Growing your own food on your own land. For you all, I offer you the book Food Not Lawns, available for free at the link in the description box below. Written by folks who originally worked for the Food Not Bombs program, you may correctly guess that this book is not only about growing a garden where grass once stood. With a heady mix of community building, anarchistic, anti-war sentiment, seed saving, and food growing information, you'll probably find a lot to consider, a bit to disagree with, and plenty of information to help you play a part in changing and unifying your local neighborhood. No land? No problem. Now listen, just because you're living in an apartment complex doesn't mean that you're doomed to sit on your gardening hands. If there's a useless lawn somewhere in your weekly route, see if you can give it purpose. Contact your church groundskeeper, or the university's chief of landscaping, or the janitor at work. See if there's some way you could turn it into something useful. It's likely you're going to hear the word no quite a bit, but there is a chance someone could give you the go-ahead to start an unlikely garden or to fill the area with native flowers that don't need as much maintenance. You won't know until you ask. Just be for sure to back up your request with the gumption to get it done. And at the very least, see if there's a community garden in your area, or find out if you can garden in that abandoned lot. Some cities offer programs supporting such efforts. In many cases, community gardens, abandoned lots turned paradises, and other such inspiring locations get started because one bold, motivated person asked, why not here now? Why not me to do it? Now here's how businesses and public centers can also use their lawn space. It's time to change the perceptions of corporate perfection that is based on having that perfect carpet of green with a "Don't walk on the grass" sign posted menacingly by the parking lot. Let folks walk on the grass. Let the apartment dwelling employees or the local 4-H club cultivate a garden in that corner. Turn that boggy spot into a native plant-filled wetland again, instead of installing yet another one of those fenced-in, sterile, boring drainage ponds ringed about with concrete. If you run a food pantry, for example, consider how much more influential and nutritious your work would be if you offered fresh food from your actively used acreage. Let a corner be transformed back into a meadow, complete with explanatory signs, patting yourself on the back for being so nice to nature. Most businesses have a landscaper or hire out a team already. It's not like you'd be adding something new, but you'd certainly be making something different. Now, whatever you choose, try to do something better than making that boring old turf the continued norm. It'll make your establishment interesting and give the local news something positive to chatter about for once.